Well, good morning. Welcome back to Sawmill. My name's Bill. This is Pirate Solutions Forestry. I got some chores to do this morning. I got a job to cut this afternoon. It's fence boards for a big horse farm up the street. I never even knew it was there, called Highlander Farms. I think that's it, Highlander Farm. Um, and we've got to cut them 1x6 by 10-foot long fence boards. They like to keep 50 on hand for their farm all the time, I guess in case they have to do repairs to their fences and things like that. It's a fairly good sized farm for around here, for a horse farm. Pretty interesting. I looked them up. They do boarding and training and all that stuff. Pretty neat looking place, and I really like the owners. I have lunch with them. Well, we have lunch at the same place, mostly on the weekends, and they're really cool people. So I'm going to cut the order for them, but I've got to do some stuff before I do that. I got to prep a couple logs out to like 10'6". Why I have this while I have the saw running, I got to buck up a couple of log chunks over here to split for firewood, and I've got some slab wood on the other side of the mill that I got to get rid of. That is kind of long, so I think I'll scoot over there too and maybe try to buck a few of those in half. But as life goes, there are always 9,000 things of maintenance that you have to do around a sawmill. I've got hydraulic filters to replace in my splitter, and I pulled out the 372 today just because it hasn't run in a while, and I'm just going to throw an edge on the chain really quick and have you guys watch me run through it. This is not going to be an extensive sharpening video. I am, it's going to sound arrogant. I don't mean it to sound arrogant. I'm just trying to qualify myself. When it comes to sharpening cutting tools, everything from metal lathe tools to auger bits to hand planes to planer knives or wood chipper knives to shears for paper companies to chainsaws to sawmill bands, to hand saws. I'm kind of a master sharpener, and I've taught myself those skills over years and learned. I have done some really extensive videos if you want to search back on sharpening chainsaw chains. Some of them, I did one back, if you look it up, that explains the geometry and all the numbers and the things you can do to them and what makes them good and what makes them bad and all that stuff. So I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to breeze through this little 25-inch bar. Probably then pause you guys, get you set up over here. I'll make a bunch of cuts so you can see how it cuts. But let's blast through this chain while I kind of keep an eye on Danny. And he just found out that I call it the bunny, his best friend Bunny, who I was sure that a hawk got because I hadn't seen him in a while. Looks like he just found him over in the thicket over next to the shed and was chasing him around in circles, and then the bunny ran under the shed, which is his little house. So it looks like the bunny's still alive, so Danny's happy. He's over there chilling in the sun. And I'm going to blast through this chain real quick. This is standard full chisel chain, full comp, and it's approximately 25. Actually, on this file right here, these little angles, I'll get you a good view, but these little angles, there's a 25 and a 30 on here. So to see what you're at, you can actually just stuff this up against the bar and look, and you can see what your angle is. I don't always use this one. It just happened to have a fresh file in it, so I grabbed it. And I prefer this one with just the round Oregon handle, because I like to turn, my hand kind of turns as I go, and it's more comfortable to do it with this one, but this file's roach. So that one's, I mean, I could swap them, I guess, but it's not a bad idea to show some of you if you struggle with angles. And believe me when I tell you, the angle is not the most critical thing. Okay, if you're off 3, 4, 5 degrees on your angle, if you got some teeth that are 22 and some teeth that are 26, or some teeth that are 30 and some that are 28, it doesn't make a difference. Okay, the geometry of the tooth is the geometry of the cutting edge is much more important to how long it's going to last or how fast it's going to cut, and so on and so forth, and keeping your drags set right. But those are in other videos. If you want to go back and watch some real sharpening videos that are really in depth, go ahead and watch them. I also do rip chains too, if you want to see some of those on some big bars. But I'm going to breeze through this bar and sharpen it out real quick. Just throw a nice fresh edge on this at 25. I will check, this is not the best file in the world either. I will check my my drag heights too, just really quick. And I'm just putting these back at factory angle, which is 25 degrees. And there is a dummy mark on the top of the tooth that you can follow. These don't take a lot. There's only a few corners knocked off that I can see. See, my hand doesn't rotate with this one as comfortably as it does with the other one. This one, I'm kind of just finding a good part of the file and using it. Everybody always says when I do a sharpening video and then I do a demonstration of it cutting, they're like, oh, well, that's a hot saw. This is a standard stock 2018 372 XP that I keep around as my brand new, easy to start. If I ever need something small saw, called 372 is a small saw, that if I want something that I don't have to mess with, like some of my modified saws, that's easy to start and going to be reliable. When I grab it, it's in case of emergency, it's ready to go. This is the saw. So this saw does not get used a whole lot. I do have to fall a very large, I thought it was a spruce, like a Sitka, but I think my tree guy thinks it's actually a standing dead white pine. You guys will get to see that. If it is a white pine, it's the straightest, and I don't have any other white pine back there. I do have Sitka spruce, and I thought it was a dead spruce, but I have to fall it out back. And I'll probably run this saw to fall it just because I have the full wrap on it. Well, it's not a full wrap, it's 3/4 wrap. People call them full wraps. They're not. This is a 3/4 wrap, not a full wrap. I just do that too. So all I'm doing here is just putting all the cutting edges back to factory, 25 degrees, and making sure there's no damage in the working corner of the tooth. If you want to know what the working corner of the tooth is, go watch some of my videos where I go into extensive geometry lessons on teeth. And do the other side. So you're not looking at my back, I'll move you guys. I like to do the other side from this angle here. I can work really, let me find a good part of the file. The other side's got most of the damage on it. I work more efficiently from this side because I can put more pressure on the cutting edge. This tooth's got some damage to it. And if you come in at an angle up like this, you can get that damage out of that working corner real fast. And then just go ahead and breeze across the cutting edge, and she's all back to brandy new. You don't have to count strokes. Again, in some of my real sharpening videos, I talk about this stuff. As long as you set your drags with a progressive raker gauge, you don't ever have to worry about counting your strokes. If I ever have a really damaged chain brought to me from a customer, mostly, I'll grind it anyway, and I'll grind them all back the same, and we can start all over again at the beginning of life. But on my saws, I always hand file them. As you'll be able to see, it only takes a few minutes to do it. And when you see it cut, they are sharp, 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 sharp. This is no joke. I'm no, bubby that doesn't know what he's doing. These are, these are going to be cut your fingers sharp if you grab this chain. I think the reason I'm showing it is more just it's just a general maintenance thing that you got to do. And if you do it right, when you see how it cuts, you'll be like, holy shit. Everybody always says, oh, that's a modified saw that it cuts that good. No, it's not. What I did there on that tooth was when I filed the edge, I actually got my angle over a little bit too much, and I just worked it back. And I'm looking at the dummy marks on the top of the tooth to match it up, but you don't need to. And I did the same thing with that. For some reason, I'm at a weird angle, I think, trying to stay out of the camera, or stay out of your way. Just kind of look for Danny here. Danny, you nearby? Almost done. I'll just blast through it. Make sure that every cutting edge is good and every working corner is good. And then we'll just throw a raker gauge on it. I don't use this saw enough to imagine that the rakers need to be taken down. Rakers, drags, depth gauges, whatever you want to call them. They're depth gauges is what they are. But I was taught drags. If you want to call them rakers, I don't care. Doesn't matter. They're not really rakers. As I explained in some of my other videos, what a raker is, and these are not it. My sawmill bands actually have a raker tooth on them. It's a raker tooth, an actual real raker. These are not rakers. These are depth gauges. And the last two. Okay, that's all we get there. We're going to throw the depth gauge on it, see if we take any metal. This is I'll show you. What is that in there? Oh. This is a progressive raker gauge. It has got two different settings on it. One says softwood, one says hardwood. Now you can never see my hardwood one because it's always wiped off, because that is what I set my gauges at most of the time, because it's a more durable edge. Now it did hit on that one. They're barely hitting, but they are hitting. So I think I'm going to go around this whole chain really quick. I'm just going to throw my painted tooth up there, and we'll do both sides really fast. It's just barely touching. I think this file's good enough to do this quick. You get that screechy noise, go at an angle like that. You can do the whole thing from one side. You don't have to flip it around like you do when you sharpen. It's just a teeny little bit off these. This gauge is a little worn, so it's probably taking them down a little bit because of that. And this sets every raker drag depth gauge to the individual tooth rather than setting an average, and that means that your teeth don't have to be the same length. Oops. Cold out this morning, but it's not wet, which is nice. Cold doesn't feel so bad. My hands are a little cold. Cold is coming. Did a little firewood yesterday. Split some wood. Filled up the camp wood bin out front because people seem to be buying it right now. If you guys are not into this and you just want to see it cut, you always have the ability to fast forward in the video. Let's see if I get one more here. That sounds like a lot, but it's not. This file's not the greatest file on the planet. One thing that wipes files is friggin' filing drags. Sometimes you can find a good part of the file, like the front or the very, very back, where you very rarely use it. Usually you wipe the middle of the file. You don't have to count how many swipes you take when you use a gauge like this. And if you don't use a gauge, you're going to cut all over the place. It's never going to cut really good, especially milling. So those of you who say, well, I never use a gauge, I just do it by eye. You can't do it by eye. You can make your saw cut, it's just not going to cut good. If you want your saw to cut smooth and good, then you have to do it with a gauge. Now, I realize that, if you're out in the field or something and you just want to get your saw cutting and you've been doing it for years and you usually just file and take a couple swipes or a drag, then that's fine. And then when you get home that night, then you can grind or file your chain, and then you can go around with a gauge and you can make it right. But doing it by eye is not right. It may get you cutting because it'll get your drags lower than your tooth, which is fine, but it sure in the hell, that's it. Ain't gonna cut smooth because you'll never get them right. If you're taking teeny little bits off, they'll still get wonky because you're always gonna file different from both sides, and some strokes are more efficient for you and some are less, and it's always going to be that way. So you're never going to get everything even if you do it by eye. I need a little fuel. Whoa, top just flew off this thing. It's one thing about the 3/4 wrap, makes it sit funny. Let's see what Danny's doing. I gotta find that cap that just flew off that thing, which is down under the wood where I can't get to it. Climb on the ground here. What I'll do is I'll pause you guys. I'll warm this saw up. And when I bring you back, we'll do some cutting. Danny, what you doing, bud? Oh yeah, she needs some slicky oil too. That's another thing with the 3/4. It's always in the way for doing that. It's getting cold. Oil's starting to get thick. So I'm going to throw on some ear protection. I'm going to pause you guys and get set up on those logs. We'll buck them off to 10'6". Make a couple cuts in that white pine back there too. Cut that into some splitting logs. Might even do that first because that's going to be real good one for blasting through it. So I'm gonna pause you guys right now, and we'll come back. We'll do some cutting. All right, so let's let her rip. I'm gonna buck this into a couple of pieces so I can split it later, and then we'll move over. We'll do some pitch pine. Pitch pine's a lot harder than white pine. Keep an eye out for the dog here. Just so you guys know, the saw is going to sound a little funny with the noise canceling and the mics. There's nothing I can do about that, so watch rather than listen. This is 20, this is 25, right? Yeah, 84 driveways, yep. So that's about how big that log is. It's just a little less than 24. So you can see, she definitely cuts. I got a little dirt on the other side of this log, so let's cut these other ones first, just to make sure I don't wipe this thing. These are my working logs here that I need to cut. I am gonna buck off this end here just to clean it up first. Then we'll measure it. I'm gonna grab a tape measure. We'll cut this thing off at 10.6. Nope. Saw done fold on its side. Give me 1 second. Let's figure out where 10.6 is. So I'm doing this because this log's got some crook to it. 9, 10, 6. Yeah. This log's got a little bit of crook to it. Actually, this 10.6 is outside that. It's still going to have some crook to it when I mill it. I did not expect that to do that. Alright, we're going to do the same thing on the other one here. Fine 10.6. The bend in this log's way more. 1x6 in the brake gear. This one's got a big knot in it. I wonder if I can skim it on the other side of it. I'm gonna cut some, I'm gonna mark it here. I'm gonna cut some logs out of this. I don't know if the view's good enough there. Let me see. Yeah, kind of. I'm gonna cut some logs out of this while I'm here. This ends up in the air. Nice to stretch the legs on the 372 a little bit. It just doesn't get run enough. I think I'm going to leave it right there. So it's like 11 feet. Just going to leave it there for now because there's a big knot on the bottom. I don't want to get this good chain in the dirt. Probably, yeah, I don't want to get this in the dirt. Maybe we'll, same friggin' thing. Let's go ahead and finish off. You get the gist of it. You get the gist of it. I don't think I need to keep you guys on for bucking for a half hour. So these are the two candidates for today. I do want to get some of my slab wood out of the way while I have the saw sharp and warmed up. I'm going to go over there, buck some of that slab wood apart, make myself some shorter lengths so I can just drag them out with the pickaroon onto the forks and go get rid of them. And I will get these, one of these, loaded up on the mill, and we're going to be cutting 1x6 fence boards, full length for those two right there. And starting on that order, I need 50 of them. I've got, I think 7 already out of what I edged off yesterday afternoon. I did edge off everything that was up on the bench here. And these are 1x6 fence boards that are not 10 feet long. And there's a couple of them that are only like 7/8, 3/4 thick. So I kept those to the side. Those are all over 10 feet. So those are all good. And these two logs are going to get me, I don't know, probably 30 more. So I'm definitely going to have to cut another log. But it's kind of what we're going through this morning. You see the slab wood pile over here is a disaster. So those couple of boards right there are going to end up being battens. There's a few there that I threw off to be battens for the shed. But all this slab wood here it's just easier if you buck it in half than just drag it onto the forks with the pickaroon. There's a bunch down here that are like 16 foot long, and then there's some 14 footers that I just cut. So I'm just going to come in here, just knock them in half, drag them onto the forks, get them out of here and get cleaned up a little bit. I'm not going to clean the whole area up. All this small stuff, usually I use it for stickers. If I can't use it for stickers, I'll just cut it with a battery circular saw right into the bucket and put it right in the camperwood bin out front, or bring it right in the house and start a fire, one of the two. So that's what we got going on. As you can see, this, you know, I say this over and over again in sharpening videos, but there's no magic to it. Just paying attention. And, you know, some people might say, well, you got to use the right size file. Use 7/32 almost for everything. Even on small chains, if you can fit a 7/32 in there, you know, maybe except for don't do it on little quarter chains like the ones that the little battery steels run and stuff like that. Not the quarter pitch chains, but any 3/25s or 3/8 chain. If I can fit a 7/32 between the drag and the tooth, I file it with 7/32. Reason being on the small chains is it creates a nice, real gradual C, and it's very, very durable. So I'm not, if you're looking to win races, then go in there with the 5/32, undercut the tooth, create an edge that's going to get wiped out in 2 seconds, but it'll cut fast. You know, I want my chains to last, so when I pick up a saw, it cuts. There's nothing worse than, you know, watching somebody with a dull saw try to cut something just drives me friggin' crazy, and I cannot stand it. So, you know, I keep my saw sharp. Any saw I pick up is going to cut. If it doesn't cut, it's getting sharpened. That's for sure. So that's it. If you want to go back and look at in-depth videos on it, you can go ahead. You can do a search on my thing for chainsaw sharpening, rip chains, tooth geometry, whatever like that. Those would all be in the titles. I know that I did a real in-depth video on chainsaw chains back in my shop inside where I did diagrams and the whole 9 yards about the angles and everything. So if you want to watch that, you can watch that. But what you watched me do on the bench right here is as simple as it is. If you have those big guides and all that stuff, just rip the Band-Aid off, guys. You want to get to do your goal, especially like even with like hand planes and stuff like that, is to do away with the training wheels as fast as you can. You are better off learning to do it without a guide. You will get better faster if you do it that way. But I understand people wanting to use guides. You know, the plain simple fact of the matter is it really doesn't matter that much on what that exact angle of that tooth is. If I went and measured that chain right now, I'll guarantee you that those teeth aren't all the same. They're pretty close because I'm pretty good at it, but it doesn't matter if they're 4 or 5 degrees off. It's still going to cut like what you saw. And I hope what you saw, one thing that was really, really apparent in that was how smooth it cut. And that's just because if you stay on top of your drags, take them down with a progressive gauge. You can get those progressive gauges at Bailey's. You can buy them on eBay. If you look up Husqvarna progressive raker gauge, you can find them there. But it's the only way to go. Trust me. It's fast. And the saw will cut really, really smooth like that. Now, if you don't mind and you don't care, just take them down and let it jump all over the place and eat. But I like it when it cuts nice and smooth like that. That's really, really impressive. And I don't know, because most of you have probably signed off by now, but if you look at some of these cuts, if I get you in there, look how smooth it came out. You know, the lines aren't all over the place. You know, cut really, really nice and smooth. You know, and that's part of you know, really, really good cutting, nice, even cutting chain right there. It's not all kinds of marks on it, make it look like a beaver chewed it off or something like that. You know, hey, that, you know, you can have that and have it cut fast and be perfectly happy. But I sure enjoy a saw that cuts nice and smooth and fast. And, you know, that saw self feeds. Hopefully you saw that with the one hand thing. I don't advocate doing that, but what it's doing is it's showing that the saw will self feed right through the log. So That's going to be it for now. I'll shoot some more video later when I'm doing some milling, but for now, for Danny and myself, and Danny is, if you can see his head over there, he's looking for his bunny buddy, but his head's just past that stump. He's laying on a slab in the sunshine right under that yew tree right there. He's just staring, waiting for chipmunks to come out. For me and Danny, for now, it's Pirate Solutions out.